Uh, so welcome to the tape group. The World is New, where we use the book. I always show it like we use the book. And The World is New from Joel Goldsmith, and which is a great inspiration so far. I cannot say anything else. It's like, especially also with this week's idea of reversing your thinking, that has already kept us pretty busy. So that's really beautiful. Busy in the sense of, well, there's a lot to discover. And so where is study for but to discover? And discovering is always a nice idea, because it's like it was covered before, now it's opened, it is actually recognized, and it is, conscious now. It's in us now. It is received. And then the next part of that is of course, not only receiving is necessary, but there's also a point of accepting the ideas. And that's where this is also very helpful for. So as well, the tapes as the book itself. And the tapes are chosen per subject. It's not that the book is made with the tapes. So the tapes that I come up with to share with you, and the transcripts that belong to it, are actually they're given for me to share. Like to this this session, you could say we have the essential principles for infinite way workers. Now, I don't know if you have listened to that already, or read some of the words that are shared by Joel, but that's quite a good study, and it's great to go through it in order to get some clarity, or receive even more, or finding ways to come into the acceptance of this and to the demonstration of this. Because what does an infinite way worker do? It demonstrates the principles, not blabbing about it, so to speak. Not blabbing about it, not keep repeating them. No, they're actually taken to heart and brought into expression. So this is where Joel is always like pointing at in all his talks, in fact, and but especially to the Infinite Way Worker talks, or practitioner training talks that are available. Now this is one of them. Now we have been studying it too in the private 25 tape group that we had. So this is just about a half a year ago we looked at it too. But as well as you probably, I don't remember any of that. So a fresh renewal of that, like to bring it back into your awareness and actually see it now in this new light in which we find ourselves, having more and more rebirth experiences, and seeing that, wow, it's actually true what Joel shares with us. Now I bring it into expression and I see it at work. How beautiful is that? So for instance, the idea of, Joel shares it in the meditation that we're going to listen to, the idea of when your mind is, imbued with truth, it's literally like you're radiating that. Because of this, soul faculties that are activated, you could say, it's like you radiate, your soul starts to radiate through everything that you do. Literally, like whoever you're going to meet is in the sphere of your consciousness. And that's a very interesting thing to see. I just had some, fresh experiences of that. Suddenly finding myself in a setup where there's a lot of human beings, you could say, and that doesn't happen to me that often. But when that happens, it's like the ones around you, or the ones that you're meeting, actually want to have a conversation with you. They have to say something to you. They really want to share something to you. And it's like, wow, I have nothing to do with that. I recognize what they are doing. They really want to join with that, what you are radiating. Whether they do that consciously or not, it doesn't matter, but that is there. So you see this also in the meditation we share about it. It's like when somebody comes into the sphere of your consciousness, when you recognize who you are, when you start to actually come into the demonstration of this, you actually see this at work, and it's delightful, because it is like everything that you bring in or that you walk into is in fact opening the door for you, is wanting to connect. Like they recognize something, they want to connect. It's so beautiful to see that. So that's really lovely. And at the same time, then the thing that happens in the acceptance of the ideas is, as soon as you, say, accept an idea that is being shared, really as like, it's not just liking the idea, but actually coming into the acceptance of it, and that a real rebirth and, say, change is occurring in you, that you see that you feel lighter, you feel that you, like, wow, receive gifts like this, like you recognize it, and your elevated state, in fact, in which you come to, or in gratitude that overwhelms you by the most simple, futile, apparently futile things. You come in a state of overwhelmedness, of gratitude, for no reason. Like there's not really a sign or thing that triggers it. No, it's just happening to you. Now we know this is what Joel shares with us too in his expressions, and it is just a delight to see that confirmed. Sometimes you need to see things black and white. Like, okay, well, when I read the book, it's like, yeah. Oh, that's so great. And that's what I say whenever I started to read Joel, which was in, I think, 2001 or so. I first got some books of him, The Art of Meditation, The Art of Spiritual Healing. It's like these books to me were always comforting. Like whenever I read through them, there was something I recognized, but that was immediately comforting. And I think that is so great about the books of Joel. So you use them and you accept the ideas, but there's a real, comforting facet related to it. And of course, it should be like that. Like you have to recognize something that cannot anywhere else be found, but in you. And if you have, say, if you communicate or come in touch with someone who's actually referring to that and giving you, say, inspiration for that, that should be comforting. So, and there's at the same time an expectancy or almost like an excitement related to that becomes really your drive for inspiration. This is my experience with this. Like I wouldn't be able to do what I do if I wasn't inspired. I was like, no, I can't wait to do that. So that's always a more. There's always a possibility for more, to express that, and also to give that everything. Like you will be given the means to give it everything. Now, how delightful is that? You receive messages, like in the book, you receive messages, and you find ways to express them, and there are opportunities to give more. And these are just like so great. Anyway, so that's it is what moves you. So it is what moves me, and that's why I love to express it. And so going to the meditation now, I prepared something, and then I had the opportunity first to just use some sheets, like some visuals for that, and I had like, no, I'm actually going to read that. Well, I'm actually going to compose a little music with that too, to make some meditation already ready for it. And it is just continuously an opportunity to give and to extend, and seeing that, wow, the gifts that you give how do they come back to you? It's like, wow, you cannot believe that. It's like, yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you for receiving that, and giving that back to me in whatever form. Like, thank you for that. So the meditation, are you ready for that? Yeah. So the title of the meditation is The Atmosphere of My Being. And it's from, say, chapter 3 in the book, The Essentials of Healing. And it is the last part of the book you can find this meditation. So there are breaks of 3-4 minutes or so in between. We will hear it in French too by Michel. And yeah. I carry the atmosphere of my being with me, and it blesses not only me, but all those who come within the range of my consciousness. They must be blessed even if they touch my coat, because I am permeated with the atmosphere of God. God is my mind, my soul, and the substance of my body, the law of my body. There is nothing to me but God. And if anyone sees me as less, he is seeing what his own vision has created. Here where I am, there is only God, and that is all I see in everyone. I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. All that is real of me is the Christ. Anything else, that which is visible to sense, is but my limited view of the Christ which I am.
Je transporte l'atmosphère de mon être avec moi, et non seulement elle me bénit, mais elle bénit également tous ceux qui viennent dans le champ de ma conscience. Ils doivent être bénis, même s'ils touchent mon manteau, parce que je suis imprégné de l'atmosphère de Dieu. Dieu est mon mental, mon âme et la substance de mon corps, la loi de mon corps. En ce qui me concerne, il n'y a rien que Dieu. Et si quelqu'un me considère comme moindre, il est en train de voir ce que sa propre vision a créé. Là où je suis, il n'y a que Dieu. Et c'est tout ce que je vois en quiconque.
Wow, thank you so much for joining in the meditation. Wow. So, yeah, it's easy to get overwhelmed. It doesn't take that much. It's like, oh, a little bit of, oh, thank you, God, thank you, God. Wow. See, and then where you go, you just don't know where to go. It's just receiving this as that what you are. It is receiving this in the in a feeling of homecoming, of thank you God for this occurrence. Oh my God, my world literally dissolves in this moment. I have no idea for the rest what. There's nothing else going on but this remembrance. It's like that's the individual experience you are invited to continuously. Now this is quite something. So it's like a continual invitation. Every situation that you appear to be in is only an invitation to remember who you are. That's all. And that's very simple. That sounds very simple. So the practice is it takes a moment for us to get to that. And we make exceptions, and we say review those exceptions and see, oh no, there's no exception. Every time there's one that dissolves, like, no, that's not it. No, there's no exception to the love of God. It is given me on a continuing basis. Every situation just asks me to remember, no, there is no separation. No, I'm not separate from God. No, God is a loving Father, and his arms are wide open, and there's nothing that I can do to, say, disrupt that, in fact. There's nothing that I can do. So that in mind and that in heart, that is always given by soul, you could say, makes it whole. And see, the mind is tempted to go into sin, you could say, to be off the mark, to take something from this world or value something and wanting it to be part of you, thinking that you need something that makes you complete. No, that's one thing that can occur. So that's your mind. Now your body is doing things too, because it's of course like completely related to your mind, but it is perceptions. Like, what am I seeing? I see images. I don't see anything. My eyes are not able to see, basically. If I look with my human eyes, I'm actually not seeing at all. I'm receiving everything that I want to see as an image that I like and that I valued, and I create a world around it that it seems like an occurrence that comes to me. Not true. Joel says this too. It's like, it's mesmerism. It has nothing to do with true vision. Like, if I would see you as a Christ with some kind of limitation, then I'm just not seeing it as whole. So it has absolutely no meaning. And here, this is how Joel showed us to heal. You know, it's like he shows you how to heal, in fact. It's like you don't want to see any exception to the perfect recognition of the Christ in anyone that you meet. And learning that there's no exception to that, no matter who you are meeting. Now, wonderful instruction, but great practice too. And there's practice enough. Like, you come in sufficient situations. The situations are even literally like custom made for you to exactly go through that, or being reminded of that in your mind, in fact, that shows you, here is where you think you're separate from God. So there's a call, there's an emergency, there's an sickness, there's symptoms, there's this, there's that. There's always something. It's like exactly, specifically this description, this setup, you could say, is not to test you. No. It's coming up to show you, it's like, in this situation, you actually thought you were separate of God. Are you still thinking that? Is in fact the question. Are you still thinking that you're separate from God in this situation? Or are you letting the situation go because you recognize, oh my God, I've missed it. Like, I really thought I was separate in this situation. Now I come to a new experience. I allow, say, a reversal to take place within me. Or maybe it goes different. So, like, you are in the situation and making it totally real for yourself. Yes, I'm perceiving symptoms. I'm experiencing them. I've pain. I've this, that going on. This is growing there, and this is not growing there, and all this. Like all the varieties that you can, that actually are tailor-made for you to recognize, no, there is no separation from God. You don't need those symptoms. They don't tell you anything about you. But now you have chosen to be in those for just a moment, really thinking that that is happening to you. Now what do? Are you allowing? to hand this over by the recognition that it cannot be true. So it must be able to change. Not that I know how to do it, but there's one who only recognizes the truth. There's one in me, like it is even happening in me, my soul, like it is happening in me. I am actually able to see this in a different way by asking for that. Like I cannot accept this. I have to see this in a different way. But I need help with that, to get to that point, to get to that consciousness within me, that place of consciousness within me, that only recognizes the Christ, that only recognizes the light and love in which we are, that only recognizes that there is one Creator. And that this Creator creates perfectly. So that sounds even technical if I say it, as if you follow this procedure, it will work. It's like, no, that's not how that goes either. So what then needs to occur in order to come to an healing experience, or to come to an, say, possibility of thinking in a different way? Now this question is coming to us in the talk that we're listening to. So I come up with an idea, say that was actually coming back in many of the meetings this week, and that has to do with reversal of thinking. Let me see if I can share that with you. Yeah, here it is. I'm going to share that with you. It is also from the book, and I used it for the schedule too in last week. Begin by reversing your own beliefs about yourself. Reverse the belief that you exist as an effect of something, as an image, a reflection, or an idea. It's like begin reversing your own beliefs about yourself, reversing the belief that you exist as an effect of something, or as an image, or as a reflection, or an idea. No, you're not. You are the very presence of God, the allness of God, individually manifest, here for the glory of God. See, this is, here are you going to reverse your beliefs about yourself. And that starts with, in fact, practicing it and just doing it that, like allowing that. Like, okay, I find myself in this situation. I have this belief about myself. I see myself as this. I get reflections back of that I didn't do it right, or I think I'm almost like possessed by an idea. So this is from the Essentials of Healing, since we are in that chapter active. Yeah, I always take just parts out of it, because there's already, like, you can in fact, magnify it, you could say, and see it at work in your thinking and recognizing it in your doings. And if you would take one idea and actually discover what is given in that idea, it would transfer to all of it. Like, that's the way this learning goes. It's totally different than in the world. Like, spiritual learning is really, you recognize it in one thing, and it extrapolates to everything. So if I recognize, if I go through one experience in which I am actually able to reverse my beliefs about it, and then that experience of that reversal, which is actually like a rebirth, is, applicable to all kinds of situations. And they go easier and easier and easier. It gets easier all the time that you apply it. So much faster than the learning of the world, you could say. It's so much faster. Now, what do I mean with that? So come up with an example. We want we want to hear all about it. Okay, great. Yeah, that's really lovely. An example is this: is like you can think, like taking the idea of symptoms, because that's universal in the human belief that you get symptoms of something that's not right. You perceive something that's not right. Now, what happens when you do that? So the thing that you do, like in your mind, in the way that you think, is like you perceive a problem. Now, what happens when you perceive a problem? Your mind is engaged. You see that your mind will start looking for a solution and will try to fix that. Now, you as a beholder, like you actually see yourself do this. You see that your thoughts go that direction. Now it's not that you're completely like helpless in that situation. Now you can actually take a look at it and say like, hey, look what my mind does. That's interesting. So I'm perceiving a problem. I'm, say, individually involved in the situation. Okay, that makes it a little bit more complicated, it seems like, but I can still look at myself and see what my mind does, which is trying to solve a problem. But forgetting, of course, that what I'm perceiving is still, it's still mesmerism. It still has no reality whatsoever. It only will confirm that you're separate from God. Now, you have already the belief that you know that that is not so. There's no separation between God and his Son. So here you see like how a reversal would look like. So it's like, okay, I cannot hold on to my belief that I'm separate from God because my God, I know better. I have experiences in which I actually experience my connectedness to my Creator by the communication that's taking place, by the recognition that I have with what I read, by the light that comes into my mind or my heart that is opening up, being so happy to hear this. So in my practice then on a daily basis, or in certain situations where I suddenly appear to have symptoms, I'm watchful, I'm alert. It's like, not going to do this. I don't need this. I really don't need that experience to go through the whole procedure of here's the symptom, there's the treatment, there's the solution. Like, no, that's not going to work that way for me. I'm skipping the whole procedure, you could say. I'm saying, okay, hand this over. There is another way of looking at this. I want that to be given to me because I don't want to fall into the trap of, say, making any of this real that I'm perceiving. Now that is Joel's words teaching in the part that we're going to listen to. So it's probably half an hour or so that we listen to the talk, The Essentials for Infinite Way Workers. It's quite instructive, but yeah, it doesn't hurt to listen to it. So it's like to the class of 25, the 25 selected students that were with him already 7 or 8 years, or 5 to 10 years, something like this. So he teaches them healing work, teaching, and all this in the private 25, which were about 80 people, I think, at the end. So it's over the years. It comes back a couple of times between, I think, 59 or so to 64. So there are 25 talks too, and this is one of them. But we listen to the second half of this talk. Yeah, I will mention the number too. Tape 162B, Essentials for Infinite Way Workers. So I'll go back a little bit. Here we go.
But beyond that, there is a faculty of the soul which operates intuitively and through intuition, but intuition is only one of its little facets. Actually, the faculty of the soul is that faculty that maintains the eternality, immortality, and harmony of our being. It isn't what we know with the mind that does that. Otherwise, we could give these books to the college professors and they'd all be the top scholars because they have the faculty of learning. It isn't the faculty of mind that redeems us either from sin, from lack, from warring with each other, conflicts with each other, envies, hate, jealousies, malice, lust. It isn't the mind that does that for us. If anything, the mind is apt to get us more deeply into it. But each of us has a soul faculty which absolutely lifts us above desire through establishing us in the sense of is. That is, it establishes us in the realization that God is flowing. God is being. God is supporting, supplying, enriching, enlightening, so forth and so on. When you're in that and you realize that your whole needs, mentally, morally, physically, financially, are all being met from within you by an inner grace, your whole attention is withdrawn from this world. You can love everybody and everybody can love you freely. There's nothing you want of them, and there's nothing, if they understand it, that they can possibly want from you, because they have the same access to the same source, which is their own soul. Their own soul. Our own soul, your soul, is the source of your infinity, the source of your eternality, your immortality. It's the source, really, of the intellect that keeps you functioning. It's the source of the intellect that you use in your business or your art or your profession. But behind all of the intellect and behind all of the physical capacities is the soul. Now, the human race hasn't access to that soul. We only attain access to it through inner communion. At first, as you all know, that's a very difficult procedure. And sometimes it appears as if it's going to be an impossible one. But persistence is the only thing that will bring it through. That and the being fortunate enough to having someone around you who is going to step beyond you in it and can meditate with you. Then they who have been lifted up a step higher than you can lift you to them. That is why you can tell the difference as to who sits up here conducting meditation. You can always tell that. You can tell the very depth and degree of their unfoldment by what happens to you. That's easy. And so it is. Every time someone sits in meditation with you, they must get an answering response if you yourself have touched your inner wellspring of life, the Master called it. That inner wellspring out of which the waters of life spring up. You don't need a bucket to go after it. It just springs up from within you, and really it's life everlasting to those who can receive it from those who have it. Now then, you who have gone this far must have had some measure of it, attained some degree or an occasional degree of a response from that within. Well, then just keep practicing until it becomes a permanent demonstration, until you can turn within at will. And eventually, to where you don't have to turn within at all. It's a permanent dispensation. Meditation isn't a permanent need. Meditation is only a need until one has so contacted the soul faculties that they're in perpetual operation. Now, I don't know anyone, or I've never read of anyone, who has gotten to the place where they can entirely eliminate meditation. The Master, we're told, went away for periods of 40 days. And I think we're pretty certain what he did when he was away those 40 days. He communed with the Father. That is, he meditated. He went within. He reached that soul place within himself. He reached that area of his consciousness which isn't human, doesn't live by bread alone, and doesn't reason things out, but receives spiritual wisdom, receives wisdom spiritually, even what we call human wisdom. It even receives the knowledge of inventions to be discovered, or new laws to be found, or new worlds to be conquered. It is the source of everything divine, everything permanent, everything eternal abides within our soul, and we don't have to go outside of our soul to find it. If the knowledge is in a book, by going into our soul, it'll show us the book and practically bring it to us to be read. We won't even have to go to a bookstore looking for it. It will turn up in our mail or a gift or at the public library. In other words, we don't have to consciously do anything except follow its lead. But in our early stages, and I don't have to tell you how early my stage is, I have to meditate 20, 30, and 40 times a day. So you know that I'm just at the beginning of the road. And I have to meditate, and how many of you have been with me and known that I've all of a sudden stopped whatever we're saying, come on, let's meditate. I don't mind what's being said, and I don't mind stopping it at any period, at any interval. When I feel like going within, I just go within, because that's my life, not bread, not wine, not water. That inner thing is my life. It's the source out of which came these books. These books didn't come out of school teaching or book learning. They came out of that inner source. And the fact that they're being published internationally didn't come out of full influence or capital. It came out of that same soul source. And the fact that you are here, and that in other cities you've seen the people who have been there, you know right well they weren't sent for or advertised for. No human means was used to bring them, not even an invitation. Just the announcement that was to be, and here you come from all corners of the globe. Why? It is that inner faculty that does it. If it is in action, it has something for you. If it has something for it, you, way off on the other end of the country, know it, and it draws you there. Don't you see that? Humans can't do that. You wouldn't chase around this country after any human being that ever was. You are being drawn by an inner light that is within yourself, and it is drawing you to the light that can light the light that is within yourself. That's all that takes place. Now, those who are drawn to you have a light within themselves, faintly visible at the present time, but that light is drawing them to a greater degree of the light which is already awakened in you. And the reason they're coming to you is that your greater light pour into them still greater light. And that's the way it works. It isn't what you know that does it, although when they ask questions, you better know it and be able to answer it. Because that is a, shall we call it a bridge? People always want questions answered in the beginning. If you notice our classwork, you rarely see one of the students who've been through many classes ask any questions. They know by then that even getting an answer to questions doesn't solve their problem. So all they want is not to have questions answered. They just want to sit in the light and the peace and the quiet and the comfort. By that time, we're through with words and thoughts, and we all know that nothing is going to bring us into our spiritual heritage but sharing the light with each other. And so you'll find out of all these questions last night, I don't think there was a question from one of our older students. And it's always that way. Whenever I go into a city and conduct the first class, Every night I'm piled high with questions. After I've been back 3 times, no more questions. By that time, they don't care whether they know or not. They want to feel. So then, the first thing, the most essential thing for students who are meeting in these groups is to be sure that they really know what's in the writings. They really know what's in the tapes they're presenting, so that they're prepared to answer questions. Secondly, that they realize the function, the purpose. Second, that they know the 2 major essentials of this teaching: the nature of God and the nature of error. If you don't know that, and if you don't know it so thoroughly that you're living with it 23 hours out of 24, then you're really not getting anywhere in this message. You see, the message isn't really as difficult as it seems when you read 20 books, because all those 20 books are trying to tell you is what the nature of God is and what the nature of the error is that you're dealing with. Those are the 2 main essentials of all those books. There are other things in it that are wonderful to know, but the 2 main essentials for us is what is the nature of God, because if you really know God aright, you gain life eternal. Once you've learned God to such a degree that you can stop praying to it, asking anything of it, expecting anything of it, you're beginning to understand God aright, and then God can function in you. Then after you are sure enough of those 2 points, you'll find that automatically you're doing healing work. Because every time an error presents itself to you, some thought comes to you either of the nature of God or the nature of error. And that's the healing agency. That thought that comes to you as to the nature of God, or, I showed you last night, the minute you can laugh and say, no, God couldn't be guilty of such a thing as that, you've known the nature of God and you have a healing. Or on the other hand, if you weren't thinking of the nature of God, if you turn and said, why, error can't do that because it's nothing but an illusion, that would be the healing agency. That inner conviction, error can't do that. It's the arm of flesh and nothingness. Those are your 2 points. Then, after that, to so practice meditation that when your student says, but I can't meditate, all he does is talk about meditation and I can't do it, then you've got to be prepared to say, well, let's meditate together. Oh, then pretty soon the student says, oh, that was fine. I could do that very easily. But then they'll come back and say, but I couldn't do it when I got home alone. No, that's right. You come back, we'll do it over again. And if you do it over often enough with your students, you lift them to where they are in that consciousness and they can do it alone. Then after that, they don't need you for meditation, although they will always enjoy meditation with you, because where 2 or more are in the depth of that consciousness, it's really a whole new world that opens up. And so, I love to meditate with some of our students. I know the depth of them. And there are some of our students that love to meditate with me as often as they can. But I don't need them and they don't need me. They have already attained sufficient depth so that they can go within themselves. And that's where all of us must eventually come to where we don't need the teacher, we don't even need the books or the recordings, because now we have access to our own soul, and that's our source. That's the object of the message of the infinite way, to reveal that the soul of man is his God, his Christ, his Savior, his support, his maintenance, his integrity, his life, truth, and love. The soul of man is the Savior of the world. That's why also we can't have an organization, because I don't dare tell anybody that you need the infinite way. I can't say that. You don't need the infinite way. You need a contact with your soul. The infinite way exists to help you attain it. When you've attained it, you need nothing. You have it all. You have access to your own soul, and that soul is God. Let's stop for a minute. I spoke last night about this business of the absolute. You see, there's no error. Error isn't real. But don't be nonsensical and believe that you're going to demonstrate that by saying it. You aren't at all. It's the degree of your realization of it that does it. And that is why everybody in the world can't be a practitioner or a teacher. They just cannot attain, at least at the present moment, the depth of that realization of the nothingness of error. When I first presented the book, The Infinite Way, I received a letter from a lady who told me what a horrible thing I had done, and she was going to pray every day for my death until she heard that I had died. I don't know which one of us was getting that first, but there is a presentation of error. When I was in South Africa on the first trip, a message was sent to me from a teacher that I was that wicked man in Revelation who was so wicked that he could bring down the stars from heaven even. That's being pretty wicked. That he can even entice stars out of their courses. And last week I had a letter that was a group of people who got their eye on me and are watching me, and I won't last long. Now, you see, every time that you really take a stand for truth, there's always this thing called error to rise up and say, I dare you to prove it, or something of that kind. We had an experience of a man who went in the desk in his platform minister one Sunday, and half of the congregation was absent because they had colds. And he said, now you see, that can't happen to me. And the next week he was absent because he had a cold. It just seems that you want to be a little careful when you take up these world's weapons like that, because sometimes they turn and rend you. Now, error in and of itself is not a power, not even germs, not infection, not contagion, not even heredity. None of these terrible things that the world is in awe of, bullets, bombs, none of those really power. They can't come nigh your dwelling place. If, see that if, so be, you dwell in the kingdom of God. So that while error isn't real, while it isn't power, just don't stand around on that affirmation and expect all of sin, disease, and death to walk right out of your world. It won't do it. It isn't in the degree of your reading those statements in a book. It's the degree of your realization of them. It's a degree of an inner awareness that takes over through this soul faculty, so that you really can look the lion in the face and say, I don't think you're the bad type lion, I think you're the good type. This is what determines the degree of healing power. We all here equally know intellectually the nothingness of error and have even demonstrated it in a measure, but there'll always be some here who'll do better healing work than others. There'll always be some on earth to do better healing work than others. And the reason is not that truth differs. No. It's the degree of consciousness of the individual. Now, you'll hear statements like this throughout your whole spiritual life, that there's no use going to New York because they're just not interested in spiritual things. It's a materialistic city. As a matter of fact, the librarian in the public library said they discontinued their Department of Religion because nobody in New York is interested in religion. But you know that isn't true. And anybody that goes into the city of New York with a religious conviction, with an inner grace, is going to build a tremendous following. Emmett Fox did it, right in New York City in its most materialistic age. But he did it because the man had really contacted God. He really was a state of God awareness. He was a deeply spiritual man who had early in life made his contact and never lost it. When he was overcome with the pressure of the humans around him that naturally gravitate where organization comes in and you have to be with him. But he built a tremendous following, not only in New York, but from all over the country, and he did it purely with his inner spiritual light. Even though he wrote his message simply, he was himself a profound spiritual light. Now, so it is, you will hear that there is no use going to Los Angeles, or there's no use going to San Francisco. Well, if you go to San Francisco today, you'll find there's no metaphysical work going on there. Outside of the Christian Science churches and a couple of small unity centers, there's really no spiritual work. And so they'll point to that and say, why, San Francisco can't maintain a spiritual work. Well, don't you ever believe it, because I was there for 2 years, and we had audiences of 900 and 1,000 and 1,100. We had classes, closed classes, twice a day with over 200 in them. And that was only limited by the size of the place we had to work in, and that the work was only 2 years. There's no limit to what could be done in San Francisco. No limit at all. It has nothing to do with the place. Nothing. It has to do with your individual degree of spiritual consciousness. Since the war, there have been 4 men that I know of from the United States who have made round-the-world trips with metaphysical messages, and none have never repeated. The one and the only, and met with very small response on their way. Very unsatisfactory response. And this work is just growing and growing and growing by leaps and bounds. It has nothing to do with the place. It has nothing to do with the nation. It has nothing to do with the city. It has nothing to do with the degree of its morals or lack of morals or materialism. It has to do with the degree of the individual. And that individual attracts to them the few that are in the city, if there are only a few, and there's always enough. There's never been a city or town or village in the world where there wasn't enough people seeking spiritual light to follow those who have spiritual light. Small town, large town, makes no difference. Wherever you are, there's enough there if the depth and the degree of your spiritual vision is enough. And what constitutes the degree of your spiritual vision? Your devotion to the letter of truth and the depth of your contact with the spirit of truth that is within you. Never blame a city. Never blame a person. Never blame a church. Never blame anything. It is our own individual degree of God contact that establishes our health, that establishes our success. And there are no outer circumstances operating against us. You may have no money to start with. You may have no pull. My first 3 months in Boston in a practitioner's office, the only furniture I had was a breadboard to sit on the radiator, and a kitchen chair for the patient, and the superintendent of the building took 4 gas pipes and put a board on top of them and made a desk for me. on the floor again. And that's what I worked on. In an empty office with no curtains and nothing on the floor, not a thing. I didn't have any money for anything else. That was all I had at that particular time. And out of that, all the rest of this has evolved. And it had to do it because outwardly there was nothing in the world of effect to help me. But there was something inside that said, this is the way, you've got to find it, you've got to prove it and demonstrate it, but this is the way, and that was the way. That was my first furniture. So don't think for a minute that a lack of money will interfere with your access to God, and don't believe for a minute that having money will help you. No, you can fit up an office with Oriental tapestries if you like, but it won't bring one patient or one student to you if you haven't got inwardly that which is drawing them. Never make God dependent on an effect. And in your practice, don't let a patient say to you, well, if I didn't have so much pain, I could start to look for God. Or if I just had eyesight, I could look for God. Or if I just had the use of my arms, I could... Nonsense. You don't need anything in the world of effect to look for God. All you need is the inner conviction that there is God, that the kingdom of God is within you, and then the willingness to stick and stick and stick until the kingdom of God opens out from within you. And it's not dependent on dollars. It's not dependent on your being pure. It's not dependent on your having even enough money to eat. It's just dependent on your determination to reach that center, which is your soul center. That's all. Well, all right.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining in this. And you see how great this tape was too. It's like, wow, how clear do you want to hear it? Joel doesn't make it difficult for you to hear what he's actually wanting to convey. I love that. I love that. So it's so great. So in other words, you receive whatever you give. You literally say, like Joel shares you, it's not coming from anywhere else. It's coming from you. So this realization brings it also very close to you. It's like, no, you just have to be yourself and not letting it depend on anything outside of you. And I think he demonstrated that really beautifully in everything that he has done, of course, but also in this tape specifically, with coming up with examples, but then always say, bring it back to, no, it's happening within you. There's nowhere else to be found. And connect with that. And there it starts, you could say. It's like that's where your soul starts to radiate throughout the universe. And it will be the only joyous thing you will do. So thank you, Joel, for this input, for this recognition, for this sharing this with us, and with the simple examples of starting an office with nothing. It's like you don't need big money for this, you don't need no money for this, you don't need anything for this, but the determination to go for it. And that's lovely. Great to be reminded of and to see it at work. So that more or less like closes this idea of this week of reversal, of reversing ideas, seeing that everything in fact was upside down. Thinking that you could be separate wasn't an idea that needed to be changed in you, and recognizing more and more that the source is within you, that you connect with it by being still. And coming to going through that process of becoming still more and more and more, in fact ending up on the other side, that you don't even need any of this. Not to meditate, not to read the books or the tapes or listen to tapes to stay aligned, you could say, but seeing that it naturally flows out of you everywhere you go, just recognizing that there are no exceptions to that. In fact, staying in the present memory of the truth of yourself. And Well, that you could call a process, but it's like it happens. It happens. You can guarantee. It's like it happens. It goes quicker than you think. Like you try to even maybe slow it down because it goes easier and easier. You come closer to it all the time, and that's so lovely about this practice. It's like no, now instead of thinking there's somebody outside of you who can oppose something to you, you recognize the one that is in front of you, and it only reminds you of home. Like no matter what anyone is doing, you recognize your brother and the savior that's in front of you, and he brings you home instead of that you start to discuss or start to do something else. Like that, in that recognition of the Christ in you, that is an easy recognition in the ones that you're meeting. Now, this is possible. This is doable. This is absolutely not doable. It is like this is some great gift that is, in fact, nothing but natural. It is your natural inheritance to recognize your brother as the Christ and to let him take you home. So thank you, Joel, for doing that constantly in all the tapes and books and all of this. And thank you for being present here and listening to this, because you do the same thing. It's like you, in fact, remind me of the nature of where you actually are coming from. And whatever you try to express to me, that's not going to change anything about the absolute beautiful, say, reflection that I receive by you in my recognition of the truth that I am. So thank you for that. And yeah, make me an instrument of thy healing. Well, that's exactly what happens then. That is so great. So thank you for sharing the joy today in this, edition. I want to say special edition. It is a special edition. Can you feel that? Oh, that's so great. It's like it's a special edition. The world is new, so check it out. It's new. You've never seen this before. It literally, you never saw this before. So everything, every aspect can immediately bring you home, no matter what you saw in it before. It's like, no, you missed it. No, that was not it. No, of course not. Look again. And you have no idea what you can see. The world is new, don't forget. And it's made new by your new consciousness of recognition. All right. I said it. See, Joel shares, in fact, the same ideas continuously too, which is simple. It's not difficult. So thank you so much for your presence, and I'll play one more tune, and I hope to see you soon. Tomorrow, for the ones that are actually coming to Miracle Mind, there's no Miracle Mind tomorrow. We do one session, say, on Wednesday. And this week there will be 3 rebirth sessions on Tuesday, on Thursday, and on Saturday. So you're welcome to join. And otherwise, I hope to see you next Sunday in the World is New tape group. You will receive an email with some information, and there are some interesting things going on that will be in the email too.